All right. I'm going to talk about the difference between native English and the normal English. So you know that when you move to some European region, you need to know about this native English languages. So it's a little bit differentiated with normal English. So first, I'm going to talk about some few patterns which are used by the native speakers, right? And the first one is drop me a line, drop me a line, draw me a line. So when you watch some movies, you might have been heard these things. Drop me a line. So what do you mean by about drop me a line? It's talk about to send you some message. It's about text me something, right? Drop me a line. So although we use just like to pass me a message or send me a message, the native speakers most times they're going to use about drop me a line, right? And the next it's about see if I care, see if I care, see if I care. What do you mean by that? See if I can. Have you heard about that? All right. See if I care. It's about talking about that you don't care at all about anything. I don't care at all. See if I care. I don't care at all. Right. And the next native speak pattern I'm going to use to move out, and it's about right. Bite your tongue. Bite your tongue. Bite your tongue. It's about what do you mean by bite your tongue? We generally use this pattern in Sinhala as well. Bite your tongue. Bite your tongue. What do you mean by that? Bite your tongue. You might have been just imagine the meaning of this, and it's about talking about to be keep quiet. To be keep quiet. Keep quiet. Although we use this in normal English as keep quiet, in native speakers they're gonna like to use most times. Bite your tongue. Right. And the next fourth one, you might have been heard this. Once in a blue moon. Once in a blue moon. What do you mean by once in a blue moon? We just use some with some combination of some sentences. Once in a blue moon. As an example, she comes to meet me once in a blue moon. She comes to see me once in a blue moon. It denotes that it's about talking about that she comes to meet me very rarely. Very rarely. She comes to meet me once very rarely. It's about talking about once in a blue moon, because never the sun becomes blue color. So that's idiomatic expressions used in native speak English. Once in a blue moon. It's about very rarely. And also the next one, I want to hang out with you. I want to hang out with you. What do you mean by hang out? Hang out means just like to have a rest somewhere. You have heard some cafes are also available without hangout. Hangout. That means you need to take some rest with some particular person. I want to hang out with you. I want to rest with you. I want to talk with you. I will need to have some time with you. So it's about I want to spend time with you. That person need to be with you for some moment. So just you're going to use hangout instead of spend time. Hangout. All right. And next, I'm going to move to next slide and the next one. Look around. Look around. What do you mean by look around? Look around means just like to find something. Look around. Look everywhere. Look around you. It's about to search something, to explore everywhere. Look around for her. Search her to find some person or any kind of object. All right. And also, I'm going to move to next. We ought to call of that. We ought to call of that. I have heard in many movies, especially in Americans, they can use we ought to call of that. What do you mean by ought to? This ought to? What do you mean by ought to? In fact, this ought to actually it's about ought to means right, just like should. You know about should? I should go home. I should do this. I should do that. Instead of should, you can use ought to. I ought to go home. I ought to help her. Ought to, somewhat the same meaning of should. The most Americans in English, they can use just like should instead of should, they're going to use ought to. Ought to. But it's actually it's talking about ought to, but when they speak, they don't going to use like ought to, ought to. They're going to use like ought to, ought to. We ought to call of that. We ought to call of that. Ought to. We ought to call of that. And what do you mean by call off? Call off. Call off means just like to cancel something. To cancel something. I'm going to call off the meeting. I'm going to call off the meeting. We ought to call off that. It's about to cancel something. Right. It's about you're going to cancel something. Right. It's mean about to cancel. We ought to cancel that. We ought to cancel that. We ought to call off that. It's a little bit different with put off. Put off is about postpone, but call off means just like to cancel something. All right. And next, I'm going to move, try to figure out. Figure out. This one should be familiar for you. Figure out. Figure out means just try to understand something. Try to understand. Try to understand. But native speakers, they most times they use figure out. They're using understand, but it's rarely they're using understand. The most times they're going to use just like try to figure out. Figure out. Just mean just like to understand something. All right. And also the last point, put off the function. Put off the function. What do you mean by put off the function? Put off. Put off means just like you're going to postpone something. Put off, postpone. As I told you earlier, put off. To postpone something. To postpone the function. I'm going to put off the meeting. I'm going to put off the match due to bad weather condition. Put off. To postpone the match. To postpone something. All right. Okay, so these are some, I gave you some account about the native English patterns, which would be just like differentiate between rather than normal English. All right. If you're having any question, you can ask me or can pass me a message at your time. All right. Okay, so I will be moving to talk about a grammar lesson today. Some a little bit different. You might have been learned, but somewhat it's like to learn from the beginning. Right. Have you heard about somewhat in conditional sentences? Conditional sentences. Conditional sentences means you have your most times you use about if, the lesson of if. Right. So I'm going to give you some account about if. And you need to know there are few conditionals in this lesson. So that's what therefore we are calling conditional sentences. Conditional. So first I'm going to talk about the zero conditional. The zero conditional, because when you're going to use this word of if, you're going to continue some conjunct, some few sentences with if, you need to know some rules. So there are some specific rules and you need to know. So therefore we are calling conditional. So there are some conditions. When you're going to use, when you're going to write something sentence using if, and also when you're going to speak with using if, you need to know about these conditions. There are a few conditions. So I'm going to start with the zeros conditional. It's not difficult, but you need to keep up with this. Right. Okay. Okay. So there are mainly two parts in this. If clause. You know that when you're going to combine two sentences using if, there are two parts. There definitely be two parts. Right. You'll be explaining one by one, and you need to get with this. Right. When the if clause becomes in simple present, and the main clause would be as same as that in simple present. It's about if clause. If clause means the sentence part which is interconnected with if. So in that case, if that part would be in simple present, the remaining part of main clause would be as same as that in simple present. As I give you some hint on this, if this thing happens, that thing happens. You can understand very clearly here. If. This is the if clause. This if clause, this consisted with in simple present. And the main clause is here. The main clause is also talking about that thing happens. You can clearly identify that main clause and the if clause both are in simple present, as you can see here. If clause is in simple present and the main clause also is in simple present. So when you build up these kind of sentences, you need to consider about some general truths. Most times they are going to use general truths. As an example, first, if you heat water, it evaporates. if you heat water, it evaporates. This is general truth. The same as that, you're going to use these kind of things, some general truths. If you heat water, it evaporates. And also, if you want to change these sentences, I mean, the if clause and main clause, if you want to change, yes, it's possible. You can change. If you would change, it would be just like, it evaporates if you heat water. It evaporates if you heat water. There's no difference between that. If you want, you can use first the if clause, and if you want, you can start with the main clause as well. The difference is, if you start with if you start with if clause, you have to use some comma after if clause. If you heat water, it evaporates. Even though if you use in the opposite, it evaporates if you heat water. You don't want to use comma if you're using in interchanging apart. If you're using in this way, you don't want to use comma, but here you need to use comma. Right, this example number 2 is about, if you melt ice, it becomes liquid. If you melt ice, it becomes liquid. I think you can clearly understand. If this thing happens, that thing happens. If you melt ice, it becomes liquid. So those are general truths which happen in the everyday life, in daily life. Right. And the third example, drop me a line if you get question in English. Drop me a line if you get question in English. Just like to send me a message if you get any question in English. I can ask you to. At the end of the class, I'll be asking you to send some messages if you get any question when you are studying. When you're studying, you can ask me a message. So I ask you to pass me a message or drop me a line if you get questions in English. Now you can clearly understand. If you use the if clause first, you need to use comma before the main clause in the second example. But you can clearly identify with the third example, you have first used the main clause. Drop me a line, the main clause. The if clause is if you get question in English. So you can clearly see there is no any comma here. Right. Okay, and the next example, people die if they don't drink enough water. People die if they don't drink enough water. It's a general truth. That's, you know about that. Nothing much different. It's a general truth, a universal truth. People die if they don't drink enough water. Right. And another example I'm going to move. If you don't eat enough, you lose weight. If you don't enough, you lose weight. Those are general truths. You can talk about these things in this zero conditional. And next, one example, if you're hungry, buy something to eat. If you're hungry, buy something to eat. If you want, you can talk about the opposite. Buy something to eat if you're hungry. You can talk about anything of this. All right. And next, I'm going to move the second part of the zero conditional. After that, conditional number 1, the first conditional. Right. You can move to zero conditional. Right. The previously we talked about if something happens, that thing happens. But here also you're going to move, if this thing happens, that thing will happen. You can clearly see if clause, if it's if clause in simple present, the main clause would be will plus infinitive. Will plus infinitive. But I have not mentioned here it's as will, because you can use any sort of future form, not only will. You can use any sort of future format which is denoted about future condition, plus infinitive. Infinitive means anytime the be verb, you can use infinitive is the base form of a verb. As an example, read, read, read. So you have to use the first part, the base form of a verb. So the second conditional is about conditional number 1 is if this thing happens, that thing will happen. Right, let's have a look on some examples. Right, the first. If we don't leave now, we'll miss the train. If we don't leave now, we'll miss the train. Of course, and you can see the if clause is in the present. If we don't leave now, and the main clause, it's about the future format with infinitive. We'll miss the bus. We'll miss the bus. Right, let's move on to the second example. Right. If you learn English, you'll be able to have a good job. You'll be able to have a good job. If you learn English, you'll be able to have a good job. That's what I told you. That's not definite. You don't want this, not a must to use will every time. Now you can see here it's used about a continuation form of the future condition of can, will be able to. Right. When I move to third question, third example, right. If I meet her, I can ask her about this matter. If I meet her, I can ask her about this matter. Now here you can see some different, but I told you the future condition in the main clause, but you can see that's okay. The first part is in simple present. The if clause is in simple present, but the main clause, it's not in will. Here has been used can. What do you mean by can here? It's about to indicate something future form. I can ask her about this matter. I will ask her about this matter. I can ask her about this matter. Because it has already not happened. So you can use can, might, could, going to, anything you can use instead of will. It's not a must to use will. You can use any part of that. Right, and I'm going to move to our next example. If it gets hot, we can turn off the fan. If it gets hot, we can turn on the fan. Something general thing. If it gets hot, we can turn on the fan. You can see it's not definite use will. All right, another example. We'll be unable to go to the hospital unless you come. We'll be unable to go to the hospital unless you come because I need to go to the hospital to check out my brother. He has been admitted to the hospital, so I need to go to the hospital. So you come immediately. So we'll be unable to go to the hospital unless you come. Right? Okay. So these are this is the the first condition, and yes, it's about it. And next, I'm gonna move to the second condition. It's about the conditional number 2. Right? Conditional number 2